Hello and welcome to the Creative Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Castro, and in this episode, you will hear what I shared in the Instagram live about the full moon in Gemini. So I go into what is Gemini, the fact that the full moon happened very exactly in connection to the nodes of the moon, making it eclipsey. We talk about this being the first full moon in Gemini after Uranus was for a few months this year in the sign of Gemini, which it will go back to in 2026. We talk a little bit about Mercury and Jupiter and also Saturn and Neptune, all of them just being in this huge water trine energy, and everything that stems from there. And so this is a very conversational episode. I hope that you enjoy it. And a few announcements I wanted to do before getting into the episode itself. I have a big end of the year sale going on. All of my art prints are 50% off, only to be delivered within Canada. And I also have a readings sale going on. So all of my astrology readings are 25% off until the end of the year. You just need to use the code solstice25, just like that. Apply the code solstice25 at checkout and you can get a 25% off all of my readings. And for the art prints, they are automatically 50% off, so you don't need to do anything. The discount will appear in the cart. So yeah, that's what I wanted to let you know. And I'm really excited to share with you also the calendar for 2026. And I have some ideas to offer you some guidance through the year. I am going to be putting all of that out very soon. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for being here. And I am wishing you a beautiful, beautiful full moon. This is going to be about the full moon that we're having right now. Actually, it was like about an hour ago. I can see the full moon over there above the city. It was looking gorgeous earlier. I hope you got a chance to see it. Okay, so this is a full moon in the sign of Gemini, and there's like a few things that I find really interesting about this full moon. One of them, like the thing that gets my attention the most, to be honest, is the fact that this is the first full moon in Gemini that we're having after Uranus having been in Gemini. Uranus spent 7 years in each sign, and it just dipped for a little bit in Gemini this year. It's not there now. And not right now is at the end of Taurus because it's kind of like gone back, right? But and I have all my information here so I don't forget things. And of course I don't have it right here. But yeah, Uranus is not right now in Gemini, but it just did. It just gave us a little bit of a glimpse into what that's going to look like all the way till 2033, right? We had Uranus in Gemini between July and November. So during those months, what did you notice? What Gemini is all about. Gemini is an air sign that is associated with the process of understanding language and then using it. So that is why it's associated with the phase of life when we go from being nonverbal babies to being kids, toddlers that can understand what adults speak about and are constantly asking questions. Why this? How do you say this? What does this mean? Etc. So we are definitely kind of like getting all into the experience of knowing language and using it. So Gemini, that's why it's associated with the twins, and that can be any conversation at all. Gemini is about words, storytelling, diversity, different perspectives, different points of view, and just communication. And this concept of it being two-faced is actually more of a multiplicity that Gemini can embody and understand. And the beauty of Gemini is knowing that there is not one point of view. There are various points of view, and it's okay. I can be here and you can be there, and we can be thinking different things and having different perspectives. So that's one of the things that I find the most interesting about this full moon, is it happening after this preview of the next 7 years of Uranus being in Gemini. Uranus in Gemini, what is that? Uranus in Gemini, or the planet Uranus, sorry, just the planet itself. It is a planet of new frontiers. Uranus is the planet that gets us out of the boxes. Whatever limitations to our most authentic self, to our most truest expression. And generally these boxes, these restrictions are more coming from society. And of course, those restrictions from society also become internalized, and they are as paradigms in or beliefs in our mind. And so the whole Uranus in Gemini process, I'm extremely intrigued by how this is going to look like for us, because it's going to be representing a time of breaking old paradigms, breaking away from old ideas, from old beliefs. And this is a planet that visits each sign for about 7 to 8 years, but it does so every 84 years. So this is the first time in our life for most of us that we're going to have the experience of this breaking of what is known to us. And this could, well, and it already is kind of like starting to look like that with the whole development of technology. And, you know, it could mean it could look like a great revolution in terms of how we are communicating, how information is shared, how stories are told, how we talk to each other, and how we move around as well. And so I find it very interesting that right now, this full moon in Gemini is the first one that we have after Uranus being in Gemini already, even if it's not there right now. The other thing that is definitely very important about this full moon is that it is happening in contact with the nodes. So the nodes are the eclipse points. And even though this is not an eclipse, it has like eclipsey vibe. It has eclipsey energy because it's exactly squaring the nodes. So the full moon is at 13 degrees. The nodes are at 13 degrees as well. So it's very exact. And that got me thinking about when was the last time we had the nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius? It was in 2020 and 2021. And one of the main things that was happening during that time, aside from, yes, we had the whole pandemic situation, but one of the main things that did was create distinctly different perspectives, distinctly different points of view, distinctly, sometimes quite completely opposite perspectives that were not there before. They weren't there as acutely present before the pandemic, right? Like we didn't have the debate about that, about what to do with that, about what was the right thing to do, about That didn't exist before. So, and also that affected travel. And that is a Gemini and Sagittarius type of thing, right? So I feel that because at that time we had the North Node in Gemini, so we were basically the lesson to our collective consciousness at the time had to do in 2020 and 21 had to do with becoming aware of that. Yes, there can be different perspectives, and that does not mean that either is the absolute truth or any of them is the absolute truth. They're just are different points of view. And so that was, to me, like a prequel to what we're going to be experiencing with Uranus and Gemini all the way into the 2030s. And so this full moon is illuminating that. It's illuminating almost like the result or the current state of where our mind is at in general. From these experiences we may have had between July and November, the variety of newness or possibilities, new pathways that were opened. What is that? Where am I at with that right now? With the many possibilities or the many ideas or the many ways that these things could go, right? But at the same time, and this is another really interesting thing about this full moon, is that Mercury is in a water sign. So Mercury right now is in Scorpio, and it just finished the retrograde, and it's, just out of this like kind of haze of the 3 weeks of being introspective, kind of confused, car issues, phone issues, like all of the Mercury retrograde classics. But we still have all this very strong water energy. Water energy is beyond language. So this is an interesting contrast right now. And that's why in a recent post, I talked about bridging your intuition with or towards the mind. So considering both things, considering what my intuition is telling me, because there has been a lot of deep reflection and introspection during the past month. Let me just double check if this has been a month or more of just so much water energy. I would say it's been more. But definitely at least the last month, but specifically the past few weeks, 3 to 2 weeks, we've just been having this grand water trine activated. So that's all about between the emotional processing, the intuitions, the gut feelings, the going into the deeper truths. And those deeper truths are beyond language or before language kind of thing. Yes. And so what is true both in your mind and in your inner knowing? And honestly, we don't need to have like all of the clarity right now. There's 2 planets that just got out of retrograde. So we are kind of like in a moment of, okay, there is a little bit more clarity, but it's not full-blown clarity. Okay, we're still in this water world. We're not too far from the water world ending, though. We're not that far away from that coming to an end. It is almost done, definitely, and it is, in its last bit. But it's very interesting how this full moon is combining the two, is combining the gradual, kind of like incipient or very fresh, very new clarity that we may be having from precisely having had all of these deep, more heartfelt or profound experiences of understanding where we're at and where we're going. And yeah, the so Mercury is in a water sign, and which is the ruler of Gemini, and then Jupiter is also in a water sign and retrograde, which is the ruler of Sagittarius. So we do have, like, even though this is an air and fire energy, which can already be feeling a lot more uplifted and a lot more optimistic. I definitely have been feeling suddenly a lot more optimistic in this full moon. Despite that, we still have a lot of water. So it's a kind of moment of clarity that is definitely inviting that bridging of the mind and the intuition, or the mind and the heart, or the mind and the deeper knowing. I like to use that term, like deeper knowing, because it's like kind of like a combination of what my gut is telling me and my intuition. And I always feel like those two kind of like one comes from above and the other comes kind of like from more of like my stomach. And it's like this knowing that has no words. And so what are these like many pathways that are possible that Gemini can be like showing us all these many pathways? But what does your intuition or inner knowing tell you that is definitely it? That tells you that it's definitely what makes sense. So what is true to you? And the reason I ask this too is because we're still partly in that pull back of the wave that I was talking about in the 2 weeks ago in the new moon in Scorpio. We're still kind of in that moment of, okay, this is the last check-in with my past. This is the last few moments that I'll have with what was, or even if it's not about the past, but we've all been just like transitioning from the past into the future throughout this decade. That's been definitely a thing. So what is true? What do I feel is true? What are my last check-ins with this past? What am I ready to just like start moving on from? And what, from the many possibilities that I saw during the summer, do I want to continue exploring? And in that same place, what healing needs to happen? What kinds of triggers are stopping you? What kinds of insecurities might be kind of like making you hesitate? This time before we get to January, but not like January 1st, I'm thinking mid Neptune, okay, yeah, towards the end of January. So between now and towards the end of January, we have like this last bit of time. Not that you cannot always be doing more healing, but it's just the water energies that are making the veils thin and making everything kind of like more mystical and more synchronistic, and all these like signs. And you know what, well, that comes with this challenge too of really having to trust and surrender, which is the challenge of the water sign in general, especially Pisces. But what do you still need to release in terms of your own insecurities that might be like halting you? You know, because next year, specifically starting coming February, and then during that springtime specifically, the new energies come back. It's not, by then we'll have Saturn and Neptune out of Pisces and into Aries. We're gonna have Uranus as well go back into Gemini. Where am I? Oh my god, I had my, oh, here it is. Okay, so Uranus goes back into Gemini in July. Sorry, no. April. Okay. So it is during the springtime. It is during the springtime that all these new energies will appear again. And this full moon in Gemini, being so tightly connected to the nodes, has this, I wrote main character energy. But what I mean by main character energy is more like main storyline energy, you know? So whatever is being up and visible to you right now, what is that? What is that you're seeing right now that may be connected to the events during July and September related to the many possibilities, this Geminian quality of many pathways, diversity, possibility, curiosities, new ideas, new fresh ideas. And then I connected again to whatever was going on in 2020, 2021. For those that have joined later in the live, that was a period of time that really showed us, you know, you can have different ideas and people will have their own. And, you know, it is what it is. We don't all need to agree. So I hope that just thinking about that gives you also permission to, you know what, I actually can break my own norms, break my own paradigms, break away from whatever the machine, the system has like kept you thinking, and allow yourself to think outside that box and just do your own thing. Think new thoughts. Like this Uranus and Gemini time all the way into 2033. Honestly, it's going to be also hand in hand with Pluto being in Aquarius. It's like the time of humanity right now where we really are creating new thoughts. I've definitely talked about these things before, but it's like, you know, not everything is not thought already. There's new things. And if you are somebody that has new ideas, you know, that has new approaches, new perspectives, new answers to old questions, or maybe there's new questions that need, of course, new answers or new solutions. This is where we are now. This is the space that we are inhabiting now. And my hope for you is that you take some time, maybe even to write a little bit during this full moon and ponder on new horizons or things that you explored, and just during this year, during the summer especially, and think about what if that felt authentic and real, what if that did not feel authentic or real, or when you think about that right now with all this water energy also that we have, what feels authentic to you, what feels like it's yes, right? Like not just from your mind or what's logical or what makes sense, but like feel it over here as well. And from there, just know that we are still in this December, January period before all the new energies of 2026 fully bloom. We are still in this time where we all have an opportunity to really tune in. So if some things might have like this incipient clarity, we may still feel a bit like lost in the sauce with all the water. But just make sure that you make good use of that feelers energy or that water energy being more enhanced, because then it'll be more action towards come February onwards. And already, because of the Saturn retrograde ended, Mercury retrograde ended, we're already in Sagittarius season, there's more fire. It's already not as intense as it was during Scorpio season. Scorpio season was definitely super challenging and profoundly transformative, and with emotions very, very deep, running very deep. almost uncomfortably so. Right now we're kind of like, okay, kind of waking up from the sleep and or slumber or from the from the crying, just like wiping, just like being like, all right, doing that final sigh, of the cry, and you're like, all right, so this is where I am now. And just remember, like, the fullness has a purpose. We sometimes feel uncomfortable with Mercury retrograde or the Scorpio or the Pisces. Yeah, it's not easy to feel the things, but it has a very important role, and the role is to get you aligned with what you really want and what really matters to you. And I'll say one more time, we are in a moment in history where we are leaving behind old thinking patterns and old beliefs, old paradigms, old ways of thinking. And if you are somebody that thinks about the future and you think you have crazy ideas, they might not be so crazy in the next few months or next few years. This is the time to break humanity's minds open to new possibilities. So yeah, I hope some of this landed. I hope you guys, anybody that tuned in, enjoyed this. Thank you. So I saw people coming in and out. So anyway, I'm going to post this, and this is going to be available also in the Creative Astrology podcast. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.